On a quiet evening in a suburban neighborhood, the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden light over the homes. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, the last light of day stretching lazily over the rows of houses. The air was thick with the soft whispers of a summer breeze, rustling the leaves of nearby trees and carrying with it the earthy scent of freshly mowed grass and blooming flowers. The sound of crickets began to chirp, their song blending with the faint hum of distant conversations and the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. It was the kind of evening that promised something magical, the kind that invited moments of connection. In one of the homes, a 9-year-old boy named Jack sat on the front porch, his small form hunched forward, gazing into the distance. His knees were pulled up to his chest, his arms wrapped around them as if to hold himself together. His small fingers nervously traced the edges of a dog collar resting on his lap. The collar was a simple leather band with a shiny metal tag dangling from it, but to Jack, it symbolized something more. It was a tangible representation of a dream he had held in his heart for years. His face was thoughtful, his brow furrowed in concentration, as he gently ran his fingers over the smooth surface. Jack had always loved animals, especially dogs. They had a way of understanding him when others didn't. And for years he had longed for a dog of his own, someone who could be his companion, his friend. His family had always responded with a gentle not yet, but today felt different. Today, something extraordinary was about to happen. Inside the house, Jack's mother stood by the kitchen window, watching him with a mixture of tenderness and a hint of sadness. She could see the longing in her son's eyes, the quiet yearning for a connection that had often felt just out of reach. Jack, with his Down syndrome, had always faced challenges that many couldn't understand. Social cues, communication, and even simple interactions were harder for him than for other children. At times it seemed as though the world was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. But there was one thing that never failed to bring him joy. One thing that he seemed to connect with on a deep level: his love for animals. And today she hoped that love would be returned in a way that would change everything for both of them. As if on cue, a soft bark echoed from the yard, and Jack's gaze snapped toward the sound. His eyes widened with surprise, and his heart skipped a beat. There, standing at the edge of the porch, was a Labrador, a large, golden dog, his fur shimmering in the fading sunlight like a beam of warmth. His friendly brown eyes were full of curiosity, and his tail swished slowly, almost as if he were waiting for Jack to take the first step. Max, the dog, had only been with the family for a few days, but today was the day Jack would meet him. Max hesitated for a moment, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, clearly sensing Jack's excitement. The dog's long tail swayed gently, but there was a calmness to his movements, as though he too understood the significance of this moment. Jack stood up slowly, his legs a little shaky. He took a deep breath, feeling the coolness of the wooden porch beneath his bare feet. The breeze picked up, ruffling his messy hair, but Jack hardly noticed. His heart was racing as he took a tentative step forward, his hand outstretched, fingers trembling slightly. He had waited so long for this. For a dog to see him, to understand him, and to be there for him in a way that people sometimes couldn't. As Jack reached out his hand, Max took a cautious step forward. Their eyes locked, Max's gentle brown eyes meeting Jack's in a silent exchange. Jack's hand was still shaking, but there was a sense of hope in his gesture. And then, as if understanding exactly what Jack needed, Max took another step forward and pressed his head gently into Jack's open palm. Jack gasped, his heart leaping in his chest. The warmth of Max's fur, the softness beneath his fingers, it was as if the world had paused for that one perfect moment. He had never felt anything like it before, so soft, so real, so comforting. His whole body trembled with the overwhelming sensation of being truly understood. He let out a shaky laugh, his breath catching in his throat as his fingers glided over Max's silky fur. It felt like a weight had been lifted from his chest. The tension he hadn't even known he was carrying dissolving in an instant. For a moment, everything around them faded away. The sounds of the neighborhood, the rustling leaves, even the fading sunlight, they all seemed distant. In that silence, Max's large, trusting eyes met Jack's. There was no judgment, no hesitation, just pure, unconditional love. Jack, overcome with emotion, wrapped his arms around the dog's neck, pulling him into a tight hug. Max responded immediately, licking Jack's face with gentle strokes of his tongue. The cool, wet sensation against Jack's skin made him giggle in surprise, and his heart swelled with a happiness he had never experienced before. It was as though Max was reassuring him, silently telling him that he was safe, that he was loved. In that moment, Jack knew that he would never be alone again. Jack's mother, standing in the kitchen, wiped away a tear as she watched the scene from the window. She had always known her son's heart was pure and full of love, but she also understood the struggles he faced. The isolation, the misunderstandings, the challenges of navigating a world that didn't always make sense to him. It had all been difficult. But now, in this quiet moment, she saw something she hadn't seen in Jack for a long time: peace. Jack wasn't alone anymore. He was understood, accepted, and cherished by someone who saw him for who he truly was. As the evening wore on, the bond between Jack and Max only deepened. Max eagerly chased a ball Jack threw, his joyful barks filling the air, and Jack's delighted giggles following close behind. The simple act of throwing a ball became something much more profound, a game that represented trust and connection. Jack's throws were often a bit clumsy, his arms a little too short, his aim a little off, but Max didn't care. Every time the dog retrieved the ball and brought it back, tail wagging furiously, he was not just playing. He was showing Jack that it didn't matter how imperfect he was. Max was there, ready to try again. Each return of the ball was a reminder that they were in this together. For Jack, these moments of play were more than just fun, they were a lifeline. They were a reminder that there was joy in the world, joy that could be found even in the simplest things. He wasn't just playing with a dog, he was sharing a piece of his heart with someone who understood him without words. Together, they were writing their own story, one of companionship, trust, and love that needed no conditions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow over the neighborhood, the sky transformed into a tapestry of dark blues and purples. Jack, now sitting cross-legged on the porch, had Max lying contentedly by his side. The dog's head rested gently on Jack's lap, his eyes half closed in peaceful contentment. Jack absent-mindedly ran his fingers through Max's thick fur, the rhythmic motion soothing both of them. They were silent, but in that silence there was a language only they understood, a language of trust, love, and acceptance. Jack's mother stepped outside, her soft footsteps making their way across the porch as she called him inside for dinner. But Jack didn't immediately respond. He looked up at her, then back down at Max, his face glowing with a peaceful smile. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt truly seen, truly understood. He bent down and gave Max one last hug, his arms wrapping tightly around the dog's neck. Max responded with a playful bark and a gentle nudge of his nose against Jack's face. The bond they had formed in such a short time was unspoken but undeniable. Jack's mother, watching from the doorway, felt a swell of pride and gratitude in her chest. She knew as she watched her son and Max together that their lives would never be the same. She had always hoped that Jack would find someone who could truly connect with him, someone who would love him unconditionally. And here, in front of her, that dream was unfolding. Jack and Max's friendship continued to grow stronger as the days passed. Each morning, Jack would rush downstairs, eager to see his new companion. Max would greet him at the door with a wagging tail and eyes full of excitement, ready to start the day. Together they faced the challenges of the world, but with each other, they knew they could overcome anything. Jack no longer felt isolated in his own world. Max was always there, steady, patient, and loving. And in return, Jack gave Max a home, a heart full of love, and a promise that they would never be alone again. The world outside might have seemed overwhelming at times, but in their little corner of it, two beings, one human, one animal, had found something rare and beautiful. They had found each other.